Hey guys, Coach Adam from TeamElitePhysique.com. Today we are doing a Olympia points review. This is an awesome time to be a fan of bikini because it is that week. It is the final weeks for the Olympia points qualification. We have people fighting it out last minute for this qualification. It's definitely one of the most exciting things. I've been part of this many times. I've been on the losing end of this 3 times. It is a stressful time. It is a fun time. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of celebration. There's a lot of disappointment. It's just one of those awesome times in sports where we get to see people really pushing their limits and pushing it to the very end to get into the Olympia. So we have all these magic scenarios where some of these girls get in, and we have some blockers of getting into the Olympia. We have some shows coming up this week, and everything is going to be decided this weekend. It's going to be an awesome weekend for the spectators. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, how does the Olympia points list work? Well, the top 3 in points will get into the Olympia, and there's a lot of scenarios where the top 4 will get into the Olympia this weekend. So I'm hoping for that scenario where the top 4 will get into the Olympia because they're all fighting for that qualification. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We have Jody with 33 points on the top of the list. I think that she's the safest one in getting into the Olympia right now. She's at 33 points, and she came in last weekend, surprised everyone, got into the show, got a 2nd place at the Texas show, and just shocked everyone and just jumped right to that. Well, she kept her points list lead. So very exciting to see her with 33 points. I think there's not too many scenarios where she doesn't get into the Olympia this weekend. I would say she's pretty safe. Now, we do have everyone else here, 30 points, 28 points, and 27 points. Now, last weekend, Lana, I honestly thought going into that show had a good chance at winning. I thought, the momentum was there. She's been doing really well at all these shows, and just looking at the show list, it looked like it was going to come down between her and Aaron. And then Vanya came out of nowhere and just crushed it and won that show, looking absolutely awesome. She's going to be a real threat at the Olympia. Lana ended up with 4th place, getting her only 2 points, which I thought she was going to end up with a win of the show or at least 4 points. So now she is at the cutoff. She's at 3rd place. She's only ahead by 1 point, which is crazy, right? So why is this so crazy? She's already in. There's only 1 show left to qualify. Well, everyone's throwing down this weekend, and that's why it's crazy. Okay, so jumping into the Sean Ray. What's going on this weekend with the Sean Ray? Well, we have here Lucia jumping into the Sean Ray. She is a former Olympian. She is looking absolutely awesome right now. I think that she has a really good chance at winning this show. And I think that that's going to block Lana from getting her win to the Olympia, and she's going to need to be coming in off of points. So I don't see a win happening for Lana this weekend. There's just too many heavy hitters. I have her somewhere in that 3rd place placing, 3rd to 2nd place placing. And I think that there's just no way of getting past Lucia this weekend because she just needs a little bit more improvement. So what improvements does she need? Let's take a look at those right now. So looking at Lana, here's a few things that Lana needs to work on. And she hasn't really been able to work on it because she's been doing so many shows this year. So it's really hard to build muscle while you're cutting constantly for shows, especially when you have so many peak weeks coming up. That's one of the problems we run into. You'll see me with coaching my girls, is that if we're doing a lot of shows, that 3rd, 4th show, it gets a little bit harder, and it's a little bit harder to keep them full hard because they're doing during peak week. You're not really working out that hard. You're letting the inflammation go down. You're not really going after it. So you lose that whole week of basically gaining. So if you're doing, let's say, 8 to 10 shows, that's basically 8 to 10 weeks a year where you're not working out with full intensity. You're working out, 70%, 80% intensity. It's not that, it's really just a maintenance week. So you lose a lot of time. It accumulates. And then you lose that time in growing to your fullest potential because you're not eating so much because you're always dieting for shows. So I think that she's running into that window. So her physique has kind of stayed similar this year. So I give her credit that her physique has stayed the same for the most part this year, but it hasn't made any significant improvements. And I think that she needs just some time off. And I hope that she does get to the Olympia. I really, really do. I think it's going to take, I think she is going to get to the Olympia. I think so. And I think there's a couple scenarios where all of them get to the Olympia. And I really hope that happens. But here's where she needs to work on to get to the next level. She's doing good right now as a breakout year, as a rookie. So hats off to her for that. But to get to the next level, this is what she needs to work on. When you see her next to some of these top level girls, where she fades is this upper outer edge of her glute and her overall tie-in. A little bit more on that overall tie-in and upper outer edge of the glute, a little bit more on that shoulder width, and then her conditioning, bringing in that conditioning just a little bit tighter, because right now it's just a hair off for today's bikini standard. It's just a little bit soft. I would say 1 to 2% leaner, and that's all she's going to need. That, and then bringing in her waistline just a hair, and that could be just from maybe the food she's eating, the exercises that she's picking, maybe just some more time doing waist training, things like that, to really bring her waistline in. And also, if she brings her shoulders up a little bit and brings her glutes up a little bit, well, then her waistline is going to look smaller, even if it's not necessarily smaller. So there's just some key little things that she needs that's going to push her over the edge. And the last thing is just a little bit more roundness and fullness to those hamstrings. And she'll be right there amongst the best of them. But I do think she gets to the Olympia, it's best for her to just take some time off, maybe start competing in that June, July timeframe again, and go from there. So I'm hoping that she gets a second place this weekend. That would give her 4 points, and I think that would put her over the edge. But we'll see. It'd be really great for her to get a win, and then everyone gets in, right? But Lucia is going to be an Olympia blocker. If you look at the Florida show where she's from, which I thought was going to be her move to go to the Florida show, you have 2 Olympia blockers there. You have Romina jumping into the show. You have Ashlyn jumping into the show. Unlikely she's going to get past both of them at that show. So it makes sense for her to go to the Hawaii show and go over there and basically go up against lesser level of competition than an Ashlyn and Romina, and potentially putting her placing up one placing higher. So yeah, so I'm super excited about this weekend's shows. I think it's going to be great. Now let's go ahead and look at Esther Oxella, who's currently second in points, trying to hold her lead. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what Esther needs to work on in order to get her. And now I think that the best chance of someone winning a show this weekend and everyone getting in is going to be Esther. I actually, to be honest, I think she has a really strong chance at winning this show over in Denmark based on the show list. I think that she has the strongest chance of winning out there. So looking at her overall physique, to be honest, it's really, really good. There's not a whole lot to work on here. I think her conditioning is on point. I would like to see just a little bit more detail in her core. Not talking in terms of conditioning or getting her any tighter, just a little bit more detail. Just a little bit in the abs I think would be great. I think that her hand placement too on this front pose is basically covering her middle of her stomach, covering her belly button. I think that needs to be behind her for aesthetics. I think it'll look a lot better if she puts her hand way back here on her hip. Generally, I like to have people put like an L and kind of hook their hip to keep that hand from going too far over to their waistline. So little things on the posing, like this arm might be just a little bit too far out, and just bringing it down just a hair, a few inches in, I think is going to help her quite a bit. But looking at her backside, when I look at the overall glute fullness, if you look at her and you look at Lana, then you can kind of see, okay, that's the glute fullness that he's talking about. This is what Lana needs, that upper outer edge of that glute and the conditioning of the tie-in to get her to the next level. And you can see a pretty big difference between Esther and Lana in terms of that overall glute fullness and glute tie-in. And this is the standard of today. This is what they're looking for. I think if she brings this overall conditioning in, she's going to be great. I think make those slight posing adjustments. I do think in the end she can get just a tiny bit more hamstring, not a little bit from the back, but also from the front, and that front profile, getting a little bit more roundness to that front hamstring to help with her overall balance and to help with her overall perfecting of her physique. But honestly, her physique is really, really good. I would say fix that posing. Get her abs just a little bit more detail, just a tiny kiss of abdominals, right? Right now I'm just seeing a good oblique line, but I would like to see just a kiss of abdominals. And I'd be careful with her arms. Her arms are getting a little bit heavy. I would say watch out for them. Don't let them get any bigger. And then, of course, she could add a tiny bit of shoulder to really help with her overall balance of her upper lower body. But her balance is pretty close to being there. I honestly think if she just makes those posing adjustments that she could win this weekend with no problem. All right, let's go ahead and go into Stein. So Stein has an incredible physique, really, really good physique, really great lines. I think that she is a little too aggressive with her posing and her arch in her front and her back pose. I think that if she relaxes this just a little and stands more upright, it's going to do a lot better for her physique. You could see when she sits back in those hips so far, it really makes it an extreme physique, and you kind of just put your attention here on your eyes, because it's like, well, that's a crazy impressive physique. But in bikini, it's a little bit too much. Remember, in bikini, you want to be good everywhere, but not great anywhere. And when you stand like this, the first thing you see is great glutes, great everything, right? Great lower body. But it stands out where the balance isn't there. It's more extreme. This posing like this hard is more wow to the average person, but to the judges, it might be too much. So I think her just standing more upright, and especially in that back pose too, not pushing so hard, is actually going to help her overall balance of her physique. And when you push this hard, a lot of times you flatten out your upper outer edge of your glute too. And I think that she could have a little bit more overall upper fullness. And I'm not saying like width, but I'm saying fullness of her glutes, like in this area here, where there's a little bit of fall off on her glutes if she wasn't pushing so hard. So I think that that's going to be a big factor in her success. Also, her suit, it has a lot of those. It's purple with a bunch of pink gems on it. Not the standard colors that you run into. I don't think that's necessarily going to hurt her in the European market, But in the US, I probably wouldn't do that at a show like the Olympia level. So that's the one thing I'm seeing from her overall physique. I do think that she can come in just a hair tighter. She's just a little bit soft in the legs and glutes. If she's going to be competing against Esther with the full tie-ins, I think that she brings those tie-ins just a little bit crispier. The hamstrings are actually good. I would say her hamstring development's probably a little bit better than Esther. But when you're looking at her from the shoulders and the overall width, she's got really, really good shoulders. I think that she can push those shoulders a little bit more to match her lower body and actually turn over her posing and turn over her shoulder width to have a little bit more shoulder width, not push so hard in the glutes so her glutes aren't overpowering to her physique. Stand more upright, not push so hard in that back pose. Get a little bit better conditioning and a little bit better in the hamstrings, and she'll be there. And also in her back pose, she's not showing really any width to her back. So I think just a little bit of width showing to her back is going to help with her upper to lower body balance at the same time. So a few things that all these girls can work on to get to that next show. I think that the best chance for all of them getting in, for Jody, Esther, Stein, and Lana to all get in, is for Esther to win this weekend. And if Esther wins this weekend, everyone's celebrating. But there's a lot of scenarios where Lana gets pushed out, and she's probably going to be the one on the bubble this weekend, depending on how she places in Hawaii. You don't want to be dependent on someone else to win to get in, but it might come down to that depending on how she places. I think if she gets a 5th place or 4th place, that might be it. You know, she might need 3rd or higher to get in. So we're all rooting for her. We're all rooting for Esther to get in or to win, or even Stein to win, and to make this good for everyone, right? They've all worked so hard. They've all done so many shows. And when you do this many shows, I really am rooting for all of them to get in. So, and one more exciting thing that no one's talking about this weekend is, as I mentioned, Romina and Ashlyn are competing in Florida. You know, as I talked about earlier, you know, I don't think it's going to be possible for Lana to jump into that Florida show and knock out both Ashlyn and Romina for first place, so it makes a lot of sense for her to do the Hawaii show. But why am I mentioning Ashlyn and Romina, since this has nothing to do with the qualifications of Lana and Esther and Jody and whatnot? Well, Romina is actually not qualified for the Olympia yet. Yeah, Romina's not qualified. So everyone thought Romina was qualified, and it's funny because no one's talking about it because Romina's, you know, she's a go-to at the Olympia. She's been there many times. She is absolutely amazing competitor, and everyone's just kind of like, oh yeah, Romina's in there. She's not in the Olympia yet. She's not qualified. She's never won the Olympia, so she does not have that automatic requalification for the Olympia. When we look at her overall in points, Romina is at 13 points. She's still on the points list. So Romina is another throwdown for this weekend. So why does it matter so much that Romina isn't in the discussion? Why is her name coming up right now? Well, let's look at last year's Olympia qualification or Olympia placing. So first off, in last year's Olympia, Ashley had 11 points, Laura Lee had 9 points, and Jennifer had 8 points. So but separating first place to third place at the Olympia came down to 3 points, so 9, 10, 11. So that's how close it was at that top 3. So I'm going to be doing some Olympia prediction videos coming up pretty soon, but it's going to be too close to tell who's going to be switching off from those top 3 spots this year, and who knows how it's going to go. But that's going to be an exciting video that's to come. But let's take a look all the way down at position number 8, right? So top 10 in the Olympia, position number 8 goes to who? That goes to Romina. So we're talking Romina, who placed top 10 in the Olympia last year, still hasn't qualified, right? Romina beat Ashlyn last year at the Olympia. Ashlyn placed higher than Romina the year prior. So this is going to be a real throwdown, and Ashlyn's going to be an Olympia blocker for Romina, or Romina is going to beat her and get into the Olympia and set up a precedence going into the Olympia that, hey, I'm back, I beat you once before, and I'm going to beat you again, just like last year, right? So it is going to be a crazy show, that Florida show. There's a lot going on there, even though it's not really a big factor in the top 3 girls getting in points. Romina has to win. She cannot get enough points. She cannot make up enough points to win off of points. So is Ashlyn going to be a blocker for Romina and knock her out of the Olympia? Is Esther going to win and all 3 get in? There's a whole lot going on this weekend, so I'm super excited about seeing it. With that, it's going to be a really exciting weekend. I am going to be glued to the computer and Instagram, refreshing, seeing who's winning. Who do you guys want to win this weekend? Who do you want to get in? I would love to hear it in the comments below. If you guys want a physique assessment, go to teamelitephysique.com. I do those for athletes just like this. So thank you so much, you guys, for listening. What do you want to see next? Shoot it to me. I'll talk to you guys later.